We welcome you to the Priscilla R. Tyson Cultural Arts Center for this Conversations and Coffee on the second truly beautiful day, of October 2025. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy, coordinator of the program. We are truly surrounded by this exquisite exhibit celebrating Kuumba Quilters Guild. Kuumba is the sixth principle of Kwanzaa, celebrating creativity that builds and preserves community, with the guild centering on African American narratives in every stitch. Their quilts explore themes of ancestry, resilience, migration, joy, embedding historical and contemporary Black experiences into fabric and thread. Monica Scott, Cheryl Woods. Want to stand up, both of you? Yeah. Thank you. You are artists in companionship, celebrating Kuumba. We thank you for bringing to us this beautiful and meaningful exhibit surrounding us. It truly does bring us beauty and joy. Yeah. And if you can sit down for a moment as I continue to tell your story. Yeah. Just as the COVID-19 pandemic was beginning, a group of African American women banded together with purpose to support one another as quilt artists and capture and promote the culture of the African American community. 2 years later, after the pandemic, the group was officially founded by Monica Scott and Renee Warmack Keels, who's one of her works is in the show. Monica, during that time, you wed the fruits of your quilting labors in a proudly colorful exhibit curated by Betty Stoll at the Ohio Craft Museum. We had Betty Stoll for our Conversations and Coffee. It was wonderful. You modestly share that you consider yourself, Monica, as an emerging fiber artist. You were taught traditional hand quilting by your grandmother in Alabama, and one of your works reflects this. You helped her make quilts to keep the family warm. Monica continues to develop her artistic vision as well as her voice while exploring new techniques in fiber arts. The residency she shares with other artists not only gives her an opportunity to work in a dedicated space, but time to explore and develop her craft. Cheryl Woods, you share that you have a creative soul and you take joy in sewing, fashioning, designing, alterations, scrapbooking, quilting, embroidery, or anything artsy, you say. But you love sewing most. Cheryl started quilting because she could not find what she wanted in any store. So she said to herself, "That's okay. I will just make it myself." She said she had no idea what she was getting herself into. Cheryl is self-taught, learning through books, YouTube, networking, and other adventures. She has experience making quilts, wall hanging, and even pillows. She shares she would like to think of herself as a person who can bring smiles and memories to the people who receive her art that allows her to show her creativity. She's been a member of the Common Thread Quilt Guild, Quilters on the Canal, and Peaceful Quilters. She is currently a member of Kuumba, Being a part of these groups has built a great network with her peers, she shares, as well as generating other ideas to perfect and express her craft. She says, quilting has given me jubilation to know that others have and will be proud of the products I produce. She wishes for all of us that one day we will have that feeling. Ah, what a beautiful wish. Cheryl, you truly, with Monica, call us to the jubilation of beauty. Welcome. We're so happy to have you with us. Ah,
Cheryl says, "You go first. This was your idea." Good afternoon. My name is Monica Scott. I am a member of the Kuumba Quilt Guild. Um, Guild is an aspirational word. We're a group of artists who hang out together, right? We don't have structure. We don't have dues. We don't do all of the things. But what we do is we try to inspire one another. We try to help one another, give feedback, celebrate one another, and we come together to try to exhibit on a quasi regular basis. And then encourage each other to submit work for other exhibitions as well. So it's kind of a loose group, but I like the looseness of it. It doesn't feel obligatory. It feels like fun. And so we were very fortunate to be able to present this exhibit today. So you've gotten a little background on the group. When I moved here, I was introduced to Renee Warmack Keels by a mutual friend. And she's like, "Hey, you're quilting. She's quilting. Let me hook you up." And so she did. And I had just started putting my toe into this whole concept of art quilting. So I am from a very rural area in Alabama, and quilts were functional. My grandmother's quilts were beautiful, and they're still beautiful. They're still in the family, of course, but they were for function only. And the concept of taking it off the bed and putting it on the wall was still kind of new for me. This would have been 2019, 2018. And so I just started researching it. Now I'm from Camden, Alabama, which is across the river from Gee's Bend, Alabama. So anyone who knows anything about quilting knows Gee's Bend is a hotbed of quilters who have definitely taken quilts off the beds and put them on the walls. And my grandmother's best friend, Miss Nettie Young, lived in Gee's Bend, so we would go over there all the time. We'd take the ferry, which was a big wooden platform with two chairs fastened to it and a pulley system. And my Uncle David would pull us across the river. And I'm sitting here like, if my mama knew she had me on this thing, but it was priceless because that's where I got my sense that quilting is community because they'd come over, Miss Nettie would have cooked all this food, and they sat around the frame and they sewed and they talked, and I got to listen to grown folk conversation, and they sang and they gossiped and they talked and they cried. And I got to witness this in real time as a young child. And it was life changing for me because it taught me about what real sisterhood is. It taught me about what community really is. And it taught me about resilience because please know, my grandmother was a sharecropper. I'm the first generation in my family not to pick cotton. Not many people can say that in the year of our Lord 2025, right? And so resilience was always the theme in my family, with Miss Nettie's family, in this community. And so I got to really see what that looks like, IRL, as the kids say, in real life. And so I don't want to take a lot of time. So I will say two things. Number one, we're very fortunate to be joined by another member of our group, Mr. Marvin Whistler. Please don't think all quilters are women. And Mr. Whistler did this beautiful modern white. I think this is my favorite thing because I still really like traditionally pieced quilts. And then he also has a nice wall in the back right-hand side of his work. There are a couple of things on that wall that are not his, but the majority of that wall is Marvin's as well. So he will be here. Feel free to also ask him questions about his work. Thank you so much for coming. It was a surprise. I was like, Marvin's here. And then my pieces, I'm still developing my skill. You can see the diversity in the quilts, I think, if you look carefully, diversity in perspective, and process, and then also in what's included. I'm still finding my voice. I was talking to some of the ladies. We were looking at Carol Staples' quilt, Ain't I American, the woman with her fist in the air. What I love about Carol's work is when you see it, you know it's Carol's work. She has her voice well defined. I think I'm still working that out, you know? And so I'm doing lots of different kinds of things. So I have two portraits and one quasi landscape piece in this exhibit. So the Nina Simone portrait is mine. That is thread painted, no piecing at all. So I literally took the thread and made all of the lines. I hand appliqued on the sequins, embroidered the hair, made the earrings. So I just like to do all the stuff, all the things with my hands I can do. And then James Baldwin is mine. That also is thread painting, so it's all stitched. And then I, just applicate on the suit. And then the quotes I pulled down from AP News and made a collage on Canva and sent it to Spoonflower, had it made into fabric, cut it up, placed it and appliqued it on the quilt. Done. And then the third one is my grandmother. It's called The Hanging of the Quilt, the woman with the hat hanging that quilt on the clothesline because that's what we had to do. We had to air them out. And so we would wash them by hand, mostly spot washing, and we'd hang them to air them out on the line. So that was my grandmother, Virginia Scott, hanging a quilt on the line. So those three are mine. And then I'm going to have Cheryl talk about her pieces, and then maybe we can do questions or talk a little bit more about what the group is doing and has done. Is that good?
There you go. Thank you, Monica. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl. Okay, so I ran across this group at what show was that? At the Ohio Craft Museum. As long as I've been in Columbus, I'm not originally from here, but I've been here a while. I did not know that place existed. But I saw a craft show. A quilt show. I'm like, okay, I have to go. Quilters, we go to quilt shows, right? I was blown away by the quilts I saw on the wall. I was just in awe. And I think everyone was coming and going, and I'm still in there looking at all the quilts. And I wound up speaking with Renee, the other creator of this group. And she said, sure, we're a group. You willing to join us if you like? I'm like, oh, yes. Now, I quilt. The Andinkra symbols is my quilt. Those are the type of quilts I usually do. I get a pattern, I make a quilt. I do lap quilts, queen size, king size, things like that. Maybe small wall quilts. I've never been into the art quilts or pictorial quilts as you see around here. So the quilts that I have in this show are my first attempt at pictorial quilts, believe it or not. So my first quilt is over there. I call it the fork in the road. That's the car driving down the street and you just have to make a decision. The Andinka quilt, like I said, that is also mine. And my third quilt is the slave hanging from the tree. So I don't have a voice, as Monica was saying, because I'm all over the place. So it depends on what day you catch me. When I came up with that one, I think that's when I heard they was banning all these books. So I was like, well, you know what? We still have to teach our history. So that's why I came up with that one. Then one day, I think I had to make a decision about something. And I was like, do I do this? Do I do that? I mean, we all have to make a choice sometimes, right? Sometimes more times than we want to. So that's where I came up with the fork in the road because I saw the definition of what fear was. So I was like, okay. So that's how I came up with that one. And then the Dinkra symbols, that was a pre-cut that I ordered. So I just said, well, I'm not sure how to put this together. So I just did it with the African fabric. But I do enjoy this group I'm with. We are talented people. It is so many different skill sets. And one thing about quilting is you can learn something every day. Every day is a new experience. We get together, mostly our group is virtual, so we get together online. It's nice because it's really a small group of people, but everyone just gets along so well, and that's good. And then let me see, I have been to quilting retreats. I love going to quilting retreats because you get to walk around to see what everyone's working on. You get to be nosy. Hey, what's that? How you do that? Really? Oh, okay. So it's it's like going to school in person. I mean, you're actually in the classroom learning things from other people. But I enjoy quilting. I love anything artsy. So I can't think of anything else. So go ahead.
You do the feather pattern when you quilt. It's a big thing about like this. It goes around is sort of like a feather.
Or free motion quilting.
No, it's just would be one part.
I don't understand that.
Then I use red and green in it a lot, and it's like Pennsylvania Dutch sort of.
Yes, okay. So you do more patterns than I do. I don't know how to make a quilt from a pattern at all. Like I've never done that. So it would be like a pattern where you piece it together.
Oh, okay.
And so no, I don't think we have, but I would like to show you a little bit of our work.
Oh, yeah, to share that. Wonderful. Your stories are amazing.
Right. So this is Carol Staples, the young woman who did the anti-American. These are her masks. They're on the other side of this wall. I love Carol's masks. I've seen so many iterations of them, different sizes and shapes. Those are all quilted pieces. So they, from afar, they almost look like wood or leather, but they're not. They're all cotton fabrics. She uses a multiplicity of treatments from gesso.
If you come over here,
I
we can see better.
not blocking. Yes.
Yeah.
From gessos to paints to Shiva sticks, you name it. She just uses a multiplicity of different tools in order to gain the effect of giving it some kind of leather or wooden treatment. Also with the embellishments and the like. Love those. This is her other quilt. Carol really does a lot with the female faces, female forms, female characters. She also has the one in this corner of the woman with the sun, the big sun behind her. I think it's called Summer Breeze. Makes me feel fine, blowing out the cobwebs of my mind, right? We always play with how do we name these things? Sometimes you have the name and you make the quilt. Sometimes you make the quilt and then you're like, what am I going to name it? I love that name. I love that name. So Carol has a very distinctive style that I enjoy. She also wrote the poem that's going down the right side herself. I don't know, my little arrow. So this is a piece, Marketplace 2 by Cynthia Catlin. Cynthia is an artist currently living in outside of Dayton, Ohio, but she's lived everywhere, East Coast, West Coast. She is prolific. You will see a few other pieces of hers. She does a lot of three-dimensional work. So she does vessels, vases that are amazing. If you were here, if you were lucky enough to be here for the opening reception, this middle space was filled with 5 foot tall fiber art vessels that Cynthia had constructed, the ones that were tubular hanging from the wall. That was Cynthia's work. She's one of my sheroes. I just love her stuff so much. That's me with the James Baldwin quilt because, my son. But what I want to talk about was the little necklace around my neck. So if you'll attend to this quilt on the wall that says, "Tell your mama I said, hey." So that is by a relatively new member of our group. Her name is Sunny Dunlap. She's in Woodstock, Georgia. This quilt is 100% hand pieced. Not one machine was used. It was all by hand. So we're literally sitting on our Zooms once a month and we see Sunny with these squares and she's just stitching and talking and stitching and talking. And then we get to a Zoom and she's like, hey, I finished my quilt. This is probably what, 6 months in, right? And so we're like, well, we have to see it. She has her husband hold this up on the Zoom, and we're all like, shut up, Sonny. This is amazing. I love this quilt, and that she hand applique on the words. And it's really about a cultural thing. It's about how in the African American tradition, we have these sayings and cultures and behaviors. And, tell your mama I said, hey, is one of those things that I'm just showing that I love and care about your family, that I'm interested, that I'm asking. It's a very casual phrase that has lots of weight in the community. And so it's a reflection of that. She hand tied it together because I think she was just tired. Yes, I'm hand tying this and I'm done. But on the right side, if you can see those necklaces hanging on the hook. So those necklaces she crafted out of scraps from this quilt. And she just wanted someone to have, the viewers to be able to put it on, walk around in the space, have a piece of her quilt with her, and even take a piece of her quilt with you if you would like. And then note that beside there's a QR code. If you scan it with your phone, it will take you to a video of Sunny talking a little bit about her quilt, a picture of her working on her quilt. She was not able to be here because she was actually at a G's Ben Quilters retreat. Show off. And so I wore the necklace for Sunny and I sent her a ton of pictures. So we love her a lot. Um, this piece is on here because two things. When we talk about the diversity of how we make these pieces, there really is a lot. Sometimes it's not apparent when you're looking, but this quilt was made by Janet Green, and Janet is in Maryland, and she's an improv quilter. Janet's mantra is, what would happen if I, and that's how she makes her whole quilt. What would happen if I put this together? What would happen if I slice this like this? What would happen if I turn this around? So most of her process is 100% improvisational. I love this piece on the side in the middle, the one that has the gray and black border called Morning Grays. This is a big improvisational quilt that Janet made when her very best friend passed away. And she was just so destroyed and didn't know where to put the grief. And she ends up going into her studio, pulling out all this gray cloth because that's just the color of the emotion. What if I did this? What if I did this? And every piece, she's thinking of her friends. She's thinking of how she's going to miss her. And she ends up making this incredibly beautiful work that's all just day to day working through her emotions. So it really is a reflection of, healing. Yes. No, she machine stitched, she machine pieced and machine quilted that piece herself. Mhm. But beautiful. So the improvisation. Oh, look at that. Clearly I hit the wrong button. This is Cheryl Woods. So, would you please, thank you so much. He's like, I'm gonna put this back in presentation mode for you. So this is one of Cheryl's pieces from another exhibit that we went to, and it shows how a lot of us use raw edge applique. So when you're looking at things like portraiture and all of that, when you want to show tonality, when you want to show all of those things, layering fabric upon fabric and stitching it down without worrying about the edges, right? Does anyone happen to know who this might be in this photograph?
It's Herbert Gazer.
She said self-portrait. Ooh, Eartha Kitt.
Hurry. He said 3 inches from.
Sorry. We had a exhibit down in Cincinnati, and one of the things was women from Ohio. This is Yvette Nicole Brown. I did not know she was from Ohio, so once I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do her. So that's who that is.
So a lot of us do use portraiture in different ways. So I wanted to show a contrast between this face, which I think has a high level of detail, and then the protest quilt, where you just have the face that's one fabric. Both are very impactful. Those are just two different processes and techniques that people use within the group. So now I'm just gonna go, here's us. This is us at opening night. Unfortunately, the missing person is Miriam, who made that cute doll on the pedestal. She's from Akron. Of course, she drove down from Akron after work, so she got here a little late. But I love that work. So myself, Stephanie, Janet Green, who did Morning Grays, Cheryl, Marvin, Cynthia, who made the vessels, and I have pictures of that. Renee Warmack Kills, co-founder, Carol Staples, and Karen Brantley, who's also from Cincinnati as well. So this is Muriel with her doll. and I so this is Stephanie with one of her pieces. What I love about Stephanie's voice is she has a wonderful way of combining traditional quilting with very Stephanie-like techniques. So if you look at a lot of her pieces, Stephanie did this piece right here. This is a prime example. So several of a group went to Ghana because there was an exhibit that featured some of our work in Accra last year. And so Stephanie and that trip bought a big bag of African scrap fabric comb. This whole thing is just made from scraps. These scraps are like 3-4 inches long, 2-3 inches wide. And what she did was she makes very traditional blocks. And then on top of that background, she will applique and add visually interesting things. So when you look at Stephanie, she has a really nice mix of traditional and modern in her pieces. So you have a very traditionally pieced background, and then she precision cut out these beautiful dahlias from this fabric that she had that's just mainstream fabric. But then she's also going to put on the buttons and the beads, and that she is the embellishment queen. Stephanie's quilts are so heavy. I'm like, girl, we need to get like a real for real curtain rod to put behind this or it's going to fall. So this is a paper pieced piece. The precision is beautiful and it's on the wall over here. And when you go see it, you're going to see the embellishments of gold cowrie beads, gold buttons, gold beads of all sorts. So she does a traditionally a lens because she started quilting with a very a group of traditional quilters. She was like 23. Everyone else was average age 65. And she learned all the things because that's what happens. If you don't learn at 23 from someone at 65, it can get lost. And so we do sit under everyone's feet to learn all these pieces. And then we figure out how we can incorporate that to have our own voice. That might be the last one. I might have to go backwards because so these are Cynthia's vessels. Not the best image, but these vessels are about 4.5 feet tall. And they're open at the top, they're closed on the bottom. They are all quilted and they are all embellished by hand. Amazing. So yeah, yeah, I'm like, girl, the dedication. I do want you to attend in the background, and I don't know if any of you noticed when you first came in, a partially finished quilt. So one of our members, Pam Bell, who we love and adore, passed away very unexpectedly about a month and a half ago, 2 months. Yeah, so this was her work in progress. And we decided as a group not to finish it because sometimes we do leave unfinished work. And it's kind of cool because you get to see a bit of the process, right? So you come and see all these finished pieces and you don't necessarily have a lens on how does it unfold. And so this allows you to see a bit of her process, but it also allows us to honor Pam, make sure she's in this exhibit. I love this piece. Pam did a combination of traditionally pieced. The Africa is pieced in a very traditional manner. The slave is appliqued or stitched atop the background. But if you get up close on that quilt, you're going to see the quilting is done by embroidery. And she has words in the waves. And then on the bottom, she started doing some land, and the fabric that she used for the land is money. So there's going to be so much symbolism in this quilt. I'd love for you to attend to it when you get a chance to see all of the messaging that she has in this one quilt. I'm going to go back the other way because I feel like I missed some things. This is Judy Middleton's quilt. Judy is in Mississippi. Judy's in Mississippi. And this is a small piece that's in the upper right-hand corner. Another version of a hanging of the quilt, very similar to mine with my grandmother's. This might need a battery. The buttons are not super responsive. So here's another example of a Stephanie quilt from a previous exhibit. If you'll see in the background, very traditionally pieced yellow blocks. And if that had nothing else on it and you saw that, you say, oh, this is beautifully done. You would love it. Not enough for Steph, right? So then what she's going to do is she's going to applique on this lady. Beautiful. Not enough for Stephanie. Then she's going to say, I'm going to give her flowers and I'm going to give this three-dimensional texture, right? And then she says, I like that, Monica. And I'm like, I like it too. What's next? Because I know she's not done. Well, I got to put some buttons and some beads on it, right? So she beads the framing. She puts the waves of buttons. What I like about the buttons is it almost forces your eye to move around the quilt. And those aesthetics are important, right? You want something that's not static. You want something that's dynamic, something that makes your eye move across the piece. I think and this is a small piece. This is probably 24 by 30. It might not be 30. But I love this example because it just shows you the thought that goes into how you want people to see your work. This is another thing that shows process. So I made the small quilt first. So the small quilt is an iteration of a traditional quilt block. We've had lots of conversation. There's lots of conversation in the Black African American quilt community. And Cheryl, when you're ready to talk, let me know because I can just talk about quilt codes and the Underground Railroad. It's always a debate. Was it real? Was it not real? Some people insist it absolutely was real. Some people say, it sounds great. So, for those that don't know, it's this philosophy that there are these Underground Railroad quilt blocks. And each block symbolized a certain message that was relayed among slaves around escaping to freedom. So you might have a monkey wrench block, a very traditional block that could symbolize it's time to gather your things because we're getting ready to go. Right. And so that people could hang these quilts on posts, on fences, on barns, where have you, and communicate in a very quiet way amongst one another about what you need to be doing, what you need to be thinking about. This particular block is an iteration of a log cabin. God bless you. Sakwa. I love Sakwa. I might join one day. I always feel like you guys are so much better than me, so I never join, but I like this. Okay, so of a log cabin, right? And then in that traditional log cabin, you have something red in the center, and that was supposed to symbolize this is a safe place. So if you're in the process of escaping, you're running, you're going here, you're going there. If you see a quilt on a fence by a house with this red center, you can come here and you can be safe, right? So I picked that block as the quilt that my grandmother would be hanging in this quilt. And then you can see the pins on her legs and her dress because I cut all those pieces out individually and then applique those on top of the quilt. So I made the whole quilt background, the blue and then the green at the bottom, and I quilted that whole thing. And then I added my grandmother, I added the clothesline, I added the quilt I made independently, and then I embellished the grass because sometimes home is nostalgic, especially if home was a good place, right? Alabama is just nostalgic for me. Like Sweet Home Alabama, it really is a thing. When we go there, as soon as we get out of the car, the air smells different because there's pine trees everywhere. So the air is very sweet. I live in the country. The air is very clean. There's not a lot of pollution. And then there's a million stars. And it just seemed like oftentimes, especially in the evening, the grass would almost glitter. My grandmother had 25 acres. She started out as a sharecropper on 75 acres. There's cotton fields and then, oh goodness, pecan orchards and all these other things. And then the sustenance farming, which was for the family, was behind the house, behind the kitchen. But she had 9 kids, sent 6 to college, was able to save up enough money to buy 25 acres of her own, retire from sharecropping, and live on her own 25 acres. She was a superhero. I don't care what you say about Superman, Batman. Virginia Scott was a superhero. And in the evenings when we would sit on the porch shelling peas, you would look across the grass and it almost like it would glisten. It was so rich and deep. The soil was rich. And so I wanted to embellish the grass subtly so that it could represent or replicate the experiences I had as a child. So that is just 100% nostalgia for me. That's something I'll never sell. I'll always keep. Um, and when I tell my children stories of their grandmother, I'm hoping that they will keep that quilt and be fondly reminded of the stories that I told. Wonderful. Yeah. So Should we do questions at this time?
Let's see.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
I did see. You're not having I sure it's a not black.
okay. So as you see, quilting could take you on a lot of journeys. There's a lot of techniques and a lot of ways to accomplish the same thing. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
He did tell me that. Okay.
My mother was born in 1899, and she lived to be 100. She died in the year 2000. And we have, my sister has it, a quilt that she made when she was 6 years old, and it's still in the family.
That's awesome. Cherish it.
Hey, right here. Use the microphone here.
Correct.
I don't. Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's one right here. I missed the first part, but are any of you got like my great grandmother was a quilter? Are any of you ladies, was it like passed down from like in your family, or was it something that was like a late life craft, or like is it rooted? Because we don't. Unfortunately, my great grandmother did quilt. It was for family. So when you quilt for family, they get tattered, they fall apart. I don't think anybody has any of the old quilts, unfortunately. But it's a part of our heritage. So I really love quilting. I don't quilt myself, but I quilt a lot, and I take a lot of quilting terminology and the beading and the embellishment I love. And so, is it like any of the connects like? Were any of you guys?
Well, for me, my mother did not quilt. She did sew a little bit, but she doesn't have patience. So, so basically, I took sewing back in the day. We had to take sewing and cooking in school. I learned how to sew. I was like a duck to water, and I took off from there. I remember as a kid, I was like, quilting, you gonna cut up all those little pieces just to put them back together? You must be crazy. So, so I did clothes. And then what started me quilting was I was looking for a bedspread for my grandson. And, you know, the Marvel people and whatever, I couldn't find it. I was like, that's okay. I'll just make it. So my intention was to have one Batman on one side, Spider-Man on the other side. Well, coming from a clothing background, you want all your colors to match. Quilting, they don't have to, but it took me a long time to get there, and I don't think I'm still there yet. So I wound up making two quilts. I didn't know what I was doing. My first quilt was fussy cutting. Does anybody know what that is? Fussy cutting means you have different, it was Spider Man, and they had Spider Man all over the place. So you can't just cut a square. I wanted Spider Man inside. So I had to go around each Spider Man to make my block. So I constantly running back and forth to the store, buying the fabric because I didn't know how much I needed. Yeah, it was a lot because when you fussy cut, you use more fabric. But anyway, so that's how I got into quilting. My kids, they enjoy it, but no, they're not into it either.
So my grandmother did teach me how to quilt, and it was a traditional quilting. Um, I am the preserver of the quilts for my family. So literally like 3 weeks ago, if you follow my Instagram, it's a picture of me mending one of my grandmother's quilts at my mom's house. I'm the mender, I'm the preserver, I'm the keeper. I consider it an honor. I will say this, for those of you who don't quilt, if someone gives you a quilt, take the quilt. You have no idea the amount of time, money, energy, and love that goes into making a quilt. My boyfriend says, I think you have a little DNA in every quilt you make because I'm like, literally, I'm cutting myself on my finger, the needle went through my finger. It is a labor of love. Take the quilt and smile and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Yeah, sure. 1 second. She's been waiting.
Oh, my question is, has the group ever considered?
Hook right into that.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes a difference. Um, Has the group ever considered putting a book together, or do you have a book?
Okay, good question.
Okay. Out of this group, I was thinking about what they call a lookbook. So we had a photographer take pictures of all the quilts. So I'm hoping to put something together and have a lookbook. I didn't know if anyone would be interested in buying it. I thought it would just be something for the group. You would like a book, huh? Okay. I think that is something I will work on then.
Okay.
You know, it's funny too because it's evolution because Cheryl was talking about from before we put this up. She's like, we need to do a lookbook for this show. We've done all these shows. We've never captured all the images in one place. And then I was thinking it would be really cool if we could, in the next one, do QR codes beside the pieces that take you into like some kind of fabric journey for each artist. And then I was thinking, well, then we could write up that oral history and combine it with the images and make something a little more robust than a lookbook. But I'm not signing up to do all that work myself, so we're working on it is the answer. We're working.
Okay, so on the quilts, you see the different designs and stuff, but the stitching, how do you decide what kind of stitch you want to put into a quilt?
Okay. That is because it depends on the quilt and the design of the quilt. So, as we are the piecers, which means we come up with the basic design and we take our quilt once we're finished with it to what we call a long armor or someone that does the quilting. That person is the one that sews all three pieces together, the top of the quilt, the batting, and the backing. A lot of times they are the ones that come up with the design on how they want to quilt the quilt. Every now and then, we as quilter have an idea, just like when I did my slave over there. I was like, okay, how we going to do this? I said, well, I want the man to stand out some. So that's a technique called trapunto. Is that correct? Uh, and then I was like, okay, but I said, I also want the words to be readable. So she went between the lines so she wouldn't cross over the words to distort the image of the wording. So it depends. Most of the time it's a long arm quilter that is coming up with the design.
So I quilt all of my own quilts. So a little bit of it. It's not about good. It's just different. So for example, on the quilt where my grandmother's hanging the quilt, if you'll notice the quilting is going horizontally because I wanted to give the vibe of wind, right? So you'll see curving lines, clamshells horizontally going across because I wanted to have your eyes go that way, right? So sometimes when I'm deciding, I always do what I call a quilt plan. So I take a picture of my quilt, I print it on actual regular old paper, and I take a Sharpie and I think about what do I want to emphasize. So Cheryl's like, I wanted to emphasize my slave. So what that means is you're going to quilt densely around the outside of that image so that that image actually protrudes or has a bit of a dimensional characteristic to it because everything else is flattened, right? So you make those kinds of decisions based on what are you trying to say? What are you trying to emphasize? What do you want the viewer to pay attention to? And then sometimes it just has to go with the shapes and what's going on in the quilt. When we were standing looking at Carol's quilt, they said, oh, look, she did no quilting inside the face. Only the characteristics that make the face are the quilting in that area because she didn't want to have distractions. I wanted you to see this face, right? So you're always making those small decisions when you're quilting a piece that's pictorial or a landscape or something like that. And when you have something that's a little more pieced, like Janet's Morning Grays or even Stephanie's, then I think you have a lot of latitude to do something that's called edge to edge quilting, or even Marvin has a beautiful edge to edge. That means from edge to edge, it's the same pattern that's repetitive. What I love about the quilting that Marvin chose, and I don't want to speak for him, here you are. I don't know if you want to speak for yourself, is that this is a very linear pieced, so you have triangles, you have rectangles. And so he's going to soften it all up with distinctive curved quilting. That juxtaposition makes it more interesting. So you're making those kinds of decisions along the way.
What would you say to someone who is trying to start out quilting? Like, how would you start? Where would I start?
Okay. There are quilt shops. Quilt shops give classes. Different machine shops, they also have classes.
Okay.
YouTube, believe me, I live on YouTube.
Me too.
You can learn a lot going on YouTube. Just look up one certain technique and stick with that, and then that will draw you into something else, But just start out with a basic, believe it or not, the log cabin. That is one of the easiest quilts that most people start out with. And believe it or not, it took me forever to do a log cabin quilt because I did all the hard stuff first.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm not normal.
And then some of it is like driving a car. Learn the rules, learn the way to do it to meet the expectation, and then break out the box and do it the way you like, right? But when you have that traditional background, then you can do it. You know, you tell your kids, change it. But you know when you're on 270 bikes, right? But you've been driving for some time before you're comfortable with that one hand on the wheel. So maybe start at 10 and 2, and then field out along the way. Quilt Beginnings on Sawmill has a quilt 1, 2, 3, quilt ABC. Learn how to build a quilt from the scratch class. And find something like that, and then network with people and get to know and see what they're doing and where techniques you goes on.
And also, you can go to the library and get a book. Yep. Because basically, quilting is straight lines most of the time. Wait a minute. I'll say 95% of the time, quilting is a straight line.
And right behind you, they're all curves, right?
No, that's the low arm quilter that did that. The piecing together of the design is all straight lines. Marvin?
Most of the time.
Yeah, I said 95.
Uh, okay, mine's Marvin Whistler. I'm a member of Kuumba Quilters. I've been at. Oh, okay. I've been asked to tell you a little bit about the experience of putting this quilt together. It actually was a learning quilt for me. It was a mystery quilt. In my quilt shop that I go to frequently, there was a pattern, but it was a mystery pattern. You got the pattern a piece at a time every month for 6 months. Well, it took me a year to do it, but that was because I was learning as I went along. So a lot of what you see, the shapes, they're, let's say, best ways to put them together. So I had to learn how to do that for several of them. I'd been quilting for a while, but I'm not one of them to do a lot of pattern quilting. So I did most of my quilting was shapes and things that I just wanted to do. Came out however it worked out. But this was really very intentional. And so it took me a while to do it, but it was also very frustrating because I didn't know where I was going. I had no idea how it was going to look when I started it until I was almost finished. I was about 3/4 of the way finished, and I began to see it take shape, and it was like, oh, this actually looks interesting. And I chose all of the colors that you see. Those are not the prescribed colors for the pattern that I used. They're all colors that I chose myself to go together. That's really in my quilting. Colors are what I enjoy the most in putting together, is picking the fabrics and picking the colors that I put together. So I think Cheryl mentioned earlier, colors have to match. Well, obviously, those colors are not matching, but they go well together.
Coordinate.
Yeah, they coordinate. And that's what I strive to do with all of my work, is to do colors that sometimes tell a story, but always present interest for the viewer. So, yes,
Well, go together that way.
yes.
Nice to. I asked, what's the quilt actually went together that way? And he said yes.
Yes.
Does everybody know what a mystery quilt is? Okay.
Well, the mystery was I had no idea what it was going to look like. And I had no idea until I was almost finished with it. So that was the mystery of it. Yes.
So the pattern, let's handle over steps. So the pattern that you have that you started out with, is that sewn on the squiggly lines? I'm calling them squiggly lines. The white quilting itself.
Oh, that was it.
Does it already like that?
No,
No. Okay.
no, that's the quilting. I actually sent that one to a long arm quilter to actually do that pattern.
Oh,
I chose that pattern.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Can I explain a little bit? So, what you're not seeing is that this is a quilt of 3 pieces. So, if you would ignore the curved quilting on the top, you would have a blank, what we call a top. And that would be all of these blocks that Marvin has pieced together. Then there's batting in the middle and a backing. And so you put those together, you take it, and that the quilting is this process of doing this that that sticks them all together, right? So he would have had done all of the piecing of this quilt and taken it to someone, and then they would have done that quilting part. So those are 2 separate steps. Does that make sense? Okay.
Right.
Hey, we'll say, I would have been a whole lot here. Tansy.
So I'm kind of interested in your basic process. Do you use the quilt frames and do you start out with a piece of fabric and then pin things on like we see that one of the pieces pinned on and then you sew them on? And what is the quilt frame? How That's why when you said you meet and then you said it's on Zoom, because I thought, how can all these people with all their frames get together and have a meeting?
No, this was not done on a frame. My grandmother quilted, and she used a frame. She was a hand quilter. That's what you use a frame for. But no, this was little tiny pieces. I call them tiny because I don't usually cut my pieces that small. They were 1 inch. I think the smallest was 1 inch. Squares. There were other squares of other sizes, but I think there were 6 different pieces to that quilt. That's why it was a mystery to me because I had to put these pieces together. I made one section, another section, another, and I had no idea how it was going to look when it went together because the pattern, the finished pattern was not given to me. And someone asked what the mystery was. Well, that was the mystery for me.
Your little pieces stayed. Was it glued?
Let me see if I can help. You get a piece of fabric. Okay, we're going to make a 4-patch. A 4-patch is 4 squares, okay? So let's say we have 2 colors. Do you have a 4-patch in there?
Wait, is that? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Right. Okay, you see up at the top, we have the orange and the brown and white, then the orange and the brown and white again. So you have a piece of fabric. You have a ruler. We have all kinds of rulers when you're quilting. So let's say each square is 1.5 inches. I'm not going to go there. Let's say 2 inches. You take a strip, you cut it 2 inches. You take another strip from the other fabric, you cut it 2 inches. You sew those strips together. Then you cut it 4 inches. So you have this strip. No, I said it wrong. Cut it 2 inches. Okay, so you have this side is the orange, this side is the brown and white. So then you cut 2 inches, and then you cut the next 2 inches, and then you flip that one. So therefore, it will look like that. So basically, you take your fabric, you cut it into pieces, and then you sew the pieces together. You're still confused.
I was saying, Derry, you put that as a bathtub? I mean, is there a basic factor with sticking it in?
It's all built. Yeah, so it's all built over time. So if you get close to the quilt when you look, you'll see seams in the white area because the white area are parts of blocks that are put together. So it will all be joined piece by piece. You can do that. That's called applique when you put it on top of something. So that would be what you would see in the protest quilt. The woman is appliqued on top. But when you're looking at a pieced quilt, all of those strips and pieces are all sewn together individually, building them to get larger and larger. This is just so visually interesting and hard to understand if you don't quilt because all of the negative space, all the white. But the white is also pieced together with the colored blocks into one big quilt.
Are we lucky?
So the whole white these are two different colors. I cut it still as I would in this color. I cut another strip of fabric in this color. Then I cut it to the size I need. Then I put these two together and I sew it together. Then I open it up. You have one color, two color, and it's together. So then you do again. And after, then you sew these two together, and then you have a bigger block. And you keep building upon that block. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Cheryl, Marvin, Monica, come forward here, Monica. What a great team. Let us give them a round of applause. Bravo for this beauty. Thank you. Thank you. He's so happy to have you with us.
Okay.
Oh, you brought us such beauty and joy and humor. Wonderful.
Next time, we'll make sure we include a demonstration of the process.
Wow. Wonderful.